Welcome to a demonstration of the Semantic Tracker, a forthcoming application of BTW. In this video, we will simulate using the Semantic Tracker to explore the usage of a cluster of near synonyms in English. In particular, we will study how the words migrant, immigrant, and refugee are used in the British press in readers' comments. The objects of our investigation are two newspaper articles reporting on the same piece of news, one from The Guardian and one from the Daily Mail, in their online user comments. First, we create a private account within BTW to use the tool. Once we have accessed the Semantic Tracker, we need to tell the software which language we are working in the primary focus of our investigation. We want to work with English and research migrant along with immigrant and refugee. Now let's add another language to enable interlingual comparison. Let's choose to work with Italian and analyze the equivalence of our words. However, we will not demonstrate the interlingual capabilities of the Semantic Tracker in this video. Now that we are clear on the focus of our research, we start collecting citations that illustrate how our words are used in context. To this end, we search the sources that we want to draw on. In our case, a search for the words migrant, immigrant, and refugee on the websites of The Guardian and Daily Mail. When we find a citation that we want to use in our study, we can input it into the Semantic Tracker and tag it with metadata, such as which newspaper it comes from, whether it is taken from an article or reader comments, and so on. In this way, we gradually create a personal database of citations for our research. Once we have collected and added metadata to all the citations that we want to study, the tracker organizes them into collections. Let's open the collection that contains citations for migrant in the Guardian's user comments. From here, we can start annotating. Let's have a look at the first citation. Here, migrants is the subject of the verb swarmed. We can mark this relationship using the annotation menu. Let's now turn our attention to the verb swarmed. This verb conveys important information about how migrant is used here, because it has a negative connotation. Let's record this information. Next, we may want to annotate the meaning of the verb swarm in this citation. The Semantic Tracker allows us to record the meaning of words using the conceptual categories of the Historical Thesaurus of English. Let's pause for a moment and look at this resource. Like any thesaurus, the Historical Thesaurus of English lists words by the concepts they express. What makes it unique are its scale and the level of specificity of its conceptual categorization. The Historical Thesaurus of English arranges all the words contained in the Oxford English Dictionary in a fine-grained conceptual taxonomy that ranges from very general semantic fields such as the world, the mind, and society, to increasingly specific semantic categories. For example, inside the field the world, we find 17 categories, including matter. Inside matter, we find further headings such as color. And inside color, several categories related to pigmentation and chromatic concepts, including the names of the colors, like white, black, red, etc. We can even explore further subcategories inside the field white and retrieve concepts such as whitishness, brilliant whiteness, silveriness, etc., containing words like milkiness or ivory. The Semantic Tracker uses the categories of the Historical Thesaurus of English to annotate the meaning of words in our citations. Of course, words take up different semantic nuances depending on their contexts, and the Historical Thesaurus of English can only offer an abstracted representation of their meaning. This is why the Semantic Tracker offers the possibility of customizing the categories of the Historical Thesaurus of English to capture the various shades of meaning that words acquire in different contexts. Let's return to our example and see how we can use the categories of the Historical Thesaurus of English in BTW to represent the meaning of swarm in our citation. Let's open the Semantic Field Workbench and search for a semantic category to represent this meaning. From this workspace, we can query the Historical Thesaurus of English and view a map of its conceptual taxonomy. Let's start by searching the thesaurus for fields that contain the words swarm or surround. Our search returns 15 results. We need to choose those that better fit the meaning of swarm in our citation. Our passage is about a journalist who finds herself in the midst of a crowd of migrants who are crossing the border. So we should probably choose the semantic categories amount to a quantity, abound, and surround, lie around as people in crowds. Both of these semantic fields seem to closely fit the meaning of swarmed in this citation. So let's add it to a list of potential candidates. The semantic category move in a certain direction, move back and forth, come and go in great numbers, seems to also fit the meaning. But we are not certain. Let's explore it further to see the words it includes and its specific position in the conceptual taxonomy. The chart shows the relationship between this specific type of directional motion and other kinds of movement, such as transference or progressive motion. In this section, we can see the words that the thesaurus assigns to this category, such as flock, swarm, etc. We can also see which words we have already assigned to this category in our project, namely team and overrun. If we think this field is suitable, we can add it to our potential candidates. To review the list, we go back to the annotation menu of our citation. Here, we decide which fields to assign to swarm. Let's select the first two. The semantic annotation of this word has been relatively easy. The semantic categories assigned to this word in the historical thesaurus of English describe the meaning of swarm in our citation fairly accurately. Our next citation, however, proves more challenging. Let's view the citations for the word refugee taken from the Daily Mail comments. Here, the word refugee is modified by the adjective desperate. The meaning of this adjective seems to lie at the intersection between the concepts of anguish and hopelessness. Let's search for semantic categories that capture it. A search for the words desperate, anguished, or hopeless returns 10 results. However, none of these fields describe the semantic nuance we need, that is, a specific form of suffering that derives from hopelessness. So let's create a custom field that meets our need. First, we select suffering mental pain, anguished, tormented. Then we combine it with expectation, despairing, hopeless. We can now add the newly created custom field to our list and return to the citation where we can complete the semantic annotation process. Now let's move along to a point where we have annotated all of our citations and see how the annotations we have made can help us in our study. Let's go back to the citation we have just marked up. Here, all the highlighted words have been annotated. We may use these annotations to answer a number of questions. For instance, we may ask if there is a substantial difference between the adjectives used to modify the word refugee and those used for migrant or immigrant. Or we may want to compare the verbs that take refugee, migrant, or immigrant as their object. We can see from our citations here that refugee serves as the object of a variety of verbs ranging from tripping up, filming, and dealing with. Let's explore whether the same applies to migrant or immigrant. To do so, let's go to our linguistic comparison tool. We select the words we want to explore and choose the focus of our comparison. In this case, the verbs that take our words as their object. The chart shows our results. There is a noticeable convergence in the field of movement. After all, this is what the discourse on migration is about. Interestingly, the chart also points to a divergence in the use of immigrant and refugee. In our sources, the word immigrant often serves as the object of negative emotions such as fear, hate, and dislike, while the word refugee is preferred to express a victim of harm. If we wish to view the citations from which this information is drawn, we can click and see the associated passage. On the basis of our annotations, we can also generate data visualizations. The semantic tracker offers a range of graphs to display the data extracted from our annotations. Depending on the desired level of granularity, we may want to choose a bar chart, semantic field cloud, or network map. Let's say we are interested in the distribution and semantic relations of migrant, immigrant, and refugee in our citations. Let's select the variables we want to chart and generate the visualization. Here, we see the relative frequencies of our three words on the left. Orange indicates the daily mail corpus, and blue, the guardian. The darker shades represent the articles, and the lighter shades, the user comments. We can see that the word immigrant occurs mostly in the comments, while journalists prefer to use migrant or refugee. We can also see that immigrant has a negative connotation, represented in the chart by the minus icon, while refugee is associated with a positive one. Now let's move to the graph on the right. This chart maps the semantic fields of the words surrounding refugee, migrant, and immigrant in our sources. As expected, movement is the semantic field most frequently associated with all three words. This chart, however, does not communicate the relationships between our words and fields such as movement. If we want to know whether migrant or refugee are the subject or object of movement, then we need to generate a more sophisticated chart, a network map. Let's include syntactic relations as one of our variables and generate the map. Our words are grouped in the three nodes in the center. The lines extending from these nodes represent the syntactic relationships connecting these words to the semantic fields of the surrounding text. Here, for instance, the word migrant is connected to the field of movement by the relation of agency, and to the field of emotion by causality. You may explore this network map further on our website. PTW is a work in progress, and many of the features we have demonstrated here have yet to be implemented. We would be grateful if you could take the time to offer us feedback so that we may develop a resource that matches your translation and research needs. Thank you for your attention and support.